Let me kill you. So nothing in this world can stop you, ever. Nothing.
Alright, what is going on, guys? It's Tazz here, and welcome back to the channel. Superman and Lois's third season has come to an end over on the CW with episode 13, titled What Kills You Only Makes You Stronger. And continuing with the theme of being stronger, this season had quite the difficult task of tackling a very grounded and real storyline for a vast majority of its runtime. Lois Lane dealt with a dire cancer diagnosis, which the show played out in a very respectful manner. While I'm sure it hit close to home for a lot of viewers, the storyline was portrayed perfectly by Bitsy Tulloch along with the rest of the cast. Unfortunately, due to the nature of the storyline, it made Season 3 quite the difficult watch week to week, but luckily as we neared the end of the season, Lois was able to get through her battle and emerge stronger as neither her nor Clark lost hope of a positive outcome. And speaking of positive outcomes, Superman and Lois will also be returning for a fourth season, although with a shortened run of only 10 episodes, as well as a reduced budget. However, things couldn't be left off without a cliffhanger, and that came in the form of a short epilogue to the season here in the final 2 episodes. After stopping Onomatopoeia and bringing Bruno Mannheim into the DoD to pay for his crimes, the next big bad stepped out of the shadows. None other than Lex Luthor, played by Michael Cudlitz, was revealed as he was released from Strikers Island prison as a man on a mission determined to get back at those who were responsible for the last 17 years he spent behind bars for a crime he didn't commit. This was easily one of the most physically imposing and menacing versions of Lex that we have ever seen on screen, perfectly portraying that threatening presence. This brings us to the setup for the finale. Lex makes his way to Smallville to pay Lois and Clark a visit to make his freedom known and begin to enact his revenge plot. Spoilers for the entirety of Season 3 of Superman and Lois, but with that said, let's just fly our way right into this finale breakdown. In many ways, this season finale was split into 2 distinct halves, the first of which acted as housekeeping and a light send-off for most of our supporting cast, while the back half was the bombastic conclusion you would come to expect from a season of DC TV. We pick up after a little over a month has passed since Lex Luthor was released from prison, and in that time, Lois has refused to step back from her journalistic responsibilities, even after Lex's threat from the penultimate episode. Some very interesting foreshadowing right in the opening few minutes of the episode is when General Lane assures Lois that in order to get to her, Lex would have to go through both him and Superman. And as we continue into the later portions of the episode, we know Lex makes good on that threat. The boys are out of school for the summer, but it won't be all fun and games as they need to help set up in downtown Smallville for the town's meteor shower viewing. Unfortunately for Jordan, his ego has gotten the best of him recently, which makes Clark very hesitant about letting him continue flying around town as Superboy. He's going to have to earn that trust back from his father. Checking in with the rest of the residents of Smallville, we learn that Chrissy is pregnant and will be having a baby with Kyle. Later on, he also proposes to her during the big gathering for the meteor shower, setting up these two to be much more closely connected in the future, but also leaving them off in a nice spot as they will not be returning in the same capacity next season. Continuing the romantic subplots, John Henry and Lana spend quite a bit of time together throughout the episode and finally go out for drinks and confess their feelings for each other. However, the only caveat to this situation is the fact that Sam Lane has offered John Henry a job in Metropolis, working closer with the DoD, developing an assortment of weapons and gadgets. This would also mean Natalie could transfer to the top-secret DoD school, possibly tying into what would have been the Diggle spin-off, Justice U, that once again we will unfortunately never see. Honestly, it feels like there was an entire cut storyline where we would have seen John Henry Irons team up with John Diggle during the Bruno Mannheim investigation. While originally General Lane's offer would have been a perfect setup for John and Natalie to pick up and move to Metropolis, as that is where the show is rumored to move for Season 4. Now, following the cast-cutting news, it seems like the more likely option is that John decides to stay in Smallville with Lana, easily writing out the Irons and Lana going into next season. We also get a couple of really nice Kent family moments in the earlier bits of the episode, with Lois finally feeling much more comfortable with her life post-diagnosis and surgery. This was lovely to see. Bitsy as Lois has easily been the standout of this entire season. She's absolutely killed it with her entire storyline. And it's just great to see her come out on the other side of things, still motivated and strong as Lois Lane should be. Just having Lois explain this all to Clark in a very intimate moment was honestly beautiful to see. Once again, Tyler and Bitsy are just perfect for their roles as they truly embody these characters. There is also a mention of a potential family vacation to Uncle Tauro's villa in Italy, and I loved how Jordan just simply said, "Don't go all Griswold family vacation," but we all know that's exactly what Clark would do. Wrapping up some more side characters, we finally have Clark convince Jordan to make things right with Sarah after being at odds with each other pretty much all season long. To be honest, the two of them just being overly mean to each other and bickering back and forth was one of my least favorite aspects of the season. I think both characters have had some really strong growth on their own, and it's nice to see that Jordan finally apologized, and they both agreed to figure things out on their own. This, of course, sets the stage for Sarah not showing up in a series regular capacity during Season 4. Luckily, Indy Navarrete has said that Sarah, along with some of the other supporting cast members, will still be appearing in a handful of episodes next season, just not to the extent they have in the past. But now, the final soft wrap-up to a side character comes with General Sam Lane, and this one hurts. Sam has put himself back out there on the dating scene, and thanks to the algorithm, meets a woman named Gretchen. At first, she seems nice, and Sam even introduces her to his grandsons and granddaughter. However, there's something nefarious to it all. Gretchen has actually been working for Lex this entire time, as she incapacitates General Lane, throws him in the back of a sketchy Luthor van, and that's the last we see of him for the entire episode. Where is General Lane? Is he safe? Is he alright? We know that Dylan Walsh has sadly declined to return in Season 4 in a reduced recurring capacity, so this could be it for General Lane on Superman and Lois. If this truly is the last we see of him, unless something changes behind the scenes contract-wise, my only hope is that they do not kill him off-screen. But going back to that line at the beginning of the episode, where he said Lex would have to go through him to get to Lois, that makes me really fear for his life. Speaking of the man of the hour, Lex Luthor, in that month that he's been out of prison, he has been plotting and planning his revenge on Lois Lane. He sends out a hit on the judge that assisted Lois earlier on in the season with the Mannheim case as a way to send a message. Lex took General Lane off the board, weakening that protection, leaving only the Man of Steel to stand in his way. That is where we discover what Lex has truly been up to this past month, revealing his sinister machinations. With the help of Otis and Gretchen, Lex Luthor was able to find and tame Bizarro, who was left behind to scavenge in Bruno's secret subway workstation. Here we get one of the most insane montages, cue the heavy metal music, as Lex Luthor repeatedly kills Bizarro over and over again. It starts slow, using an XK laser rifle, then progresses to an arsenal infused with X-kryptonite. From melee weapons to guns and grenades to full-on rocket launchers, Lex Luthor was not messing around. Lex has this very intense and emotional back and forth with Bizarro, basically asking him to beg for death in order to make him borderline unstoppable. What kills you only makes you stronger. As Lex continues to find new ways to kill Bizarro, he begins to fundamentally change and grow, becoming larger, stronger, and more monstrous, and it was at this point everyone's theories were answered. Bringing everything full circle from his first appearance all the way back in Season 2, Bizarro slowly morphs into the unstoppable force of destruction that is Doomsday. With the transformation complete, Lex enacts his plan to kill the Man of Steel, confronting Superman on the Kent farm in a very intense face-off as Lois's last line of defense. This standoff just solidifies not only how terrifying, cold, and calculated this version of Lex Luthor is, but also creates such an interesting image due to the fact that he is just so physically imposing and visually larger than even Superman himself. Michael Cudlitz has absolutely killed it in every single scene he was given over the last 2 episodes of Season 3, and while a vastly different version of Lex than we are used to, I'm so excited to see just how far he can take things in Season 4. I do also think Lex knows Clark is Superman. I mean, how could he not, especially now after working so closely with Bizarro? Maybe he chooses to keep that info close to his chest, or even doesn't want to believe it himself that someone like Clark Kent could be Superman. Let the battle begin. Lex summons his creation to the farm, where in his full CGI glory, Doomsday is revealed not just to the audience, but Superman as well. Clark is shocked and horrified by what Lex Luthor turned Bizarro into. It's just tragic that another version of Superman could fall so far from the hero he is meant to be. However, as Clark slowly levitates, preparing for the fight of his life, we get a great look at the intricately detailed Doomsday, complete with the Bizarro crest burned into his chest. Lex just turns around like a cool guy that doesn't look at explosions and walks away, beginning the big showdown. The fight starts on the farm and then takes us to the main street of Smallville for everyone to see. Just the looks of horror on everyone's faces, including Clark, really ups the stakes of the fight, especially if you are familiar with where the Superman Doomsday fight usually takes us. The battle continues to Metropolis, where Superman is able to get the upper hand, impaling Doomsday on the sharp point of a building, only to realize that this just seems to make him even angrier. Doomsday goes berserk on Clark, dragging him through a train station, beating him so badly that his heart even stops for a moment. Clark gets some flashes of motivation, thinking about his family and what he is truly fighting for, giving him a second wind, taking the fight off-world. We fly to the moon. That's right, you heard me, the moon. Doomsday rips off some of his spikes, charging at Superman as he is flying at the creature, with the two charging at each other on the moon, with the Earth in the background symbolizing what is at stake. That is where the season sadly comes to a close. What a way to end such an incredible season of DC TV with Season 3 of Superman and Lois. While I, along with many others, have had some slight criticisms about the side stories or just how dark and depressing the season got at times, that does not undermine the quality of the show. I would have never thought that we would not only see an incredible looking, comic-accurate depiction of Doomsday on television, let alone taking this version of Doomsday that used to be bizarro and ending the episode with an epic extended fight sequence that certainly rivals some of the best. I think this episode also did a great job of giving solid send-offs for most of the supporting cast that will unfortunately not be returning due to budget cuts going into next season. On the bright side, however, this does mean that the show will have more time to focus on the core cast, that being the Kent family and the big bad with Lex Luthor. This was easily one of the most insane cliffhangers to end the season off on, and I'm just so grateful that we will actually get to see a resolution to the Superman vs. Doomsday fight. The only real question that remains is, where will Season 4 pick up? My favorite theory is for it to just be a direct continuation, picking right back up on the moon where we left off, finishing the fight in full. Another option would be to start with a time jump, having the Kents already moved out of Smallville and back to Metropolis. Lex has assumed control of Luthor Corps, Lois is back at the Daily Planet, Jordan has been training as Superboy with some assistance from John possibly, maybe as sort of his guy in the chair. This is where the death of Superman could come into play. Clark could have died defeating Doomsday, and throughout the break, his family and the world has had to learn to move on without him. Maybe give us a toned-down version of Reign of the Supermen as well, although I honestly think this is the least likely option with that reduced cast. They already sort of killed Clark in the finale anyway, and picking up in Season 4 with him dying off-screen would just not be a smart move in my opinion. And now the final option, continuing with the time jump and the Metropolis move, but this time Clark is still alive and reeling from the Doomsday fight. Maybe he has flashbacks or PTSD to this fight which almost cost him his life, and we could see bits and pieces of the rest of the fight scattered throughout the Season 4 premiere, Flash Season 2 style. Overall, guys, once again, Superman and Lois proves why it sets the quality bar for superhero television, showing us just how far you can take a series and make it look almost as good as a feature film. While it will be sad to lose a large chunk of our supporting cast as series regulars, I'm excited for the possibility of a more streamlined fourth season, focusing on the show's core while also further establishing the looming threat of Lex Luthor as we most likely move back to Metropolis. So with that said, guys, what did you think of Superman and Lois Season 3 as a whole? Did the finale and the cliffhanger live up to the hype for you? And what are you most excited for going into Season 4? Just let me know your thoughts on all of this down there in the comments below. But until next time, guys, it's been Tazz, and I'll see you guys in the next video.